Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Lucas and welcome back to the show. Today I'm going to be talking some Madden 22. Now, before I get started, you might recognize that, well, this isn't Madden 22 in the background. And because of the issue of EA blocking people's EA trials, I actually didn't get the last probably about 6-7 hours of my trial, so I didn't actually get any gameplay of it. That being said, a lot of people haven't really brought up why. I have what I thought it was is the quick resume feature that EA didn't account for that. And because of that, the gameplay or the game considered you in the game for those 10 hours. Now, when I got back on, it still said I had 15 minutes left, but that's my guess. And it still is I'm pretty sure that's the reason. Just because I actually didn't know this was that big of an issue. I didn't realize that so many people had seen this issue. But I can almost 100% guarantee that it is the quick resume feature on why it didn't keep time, right? So that's my thought on that. However, I'm still gonna go through Madden 22. I played a fair bit amount of franchise. I played some of the game. I didn't touch Ultimate Team, but I'm not even going to talk about Ultimate Team because, let's be honest, Ultimate Team is Ultimate Team. It's a fine game mode that it doesn't really make you pay to win, but it pretty much makes you pay to win. And at the end of the day, it wouldn't be too bad if it weren't for the gameplay. I am gonna talk a little bit about Face of the Franchise, which I didn't touch, and I haven't really seen much on it. But again, I've heard other people talk about it. And overall, this isn't all from my perspective. I've watched people play the game. I've watched people talk about the game. So this is taking what they've talked about and what I've seen compared with the time I have played the game. And I'm going to kind of describe my experience and how I feel about it. Like I said, starting off, I'll probably mention Face of the Franchise a little bit. Then we'll move into the obvious franchise upgrades and the presentation upgrades. And then we'll talk about the gameplay. Anyway, moving on to the Face of the Franchise, just as I said, I have not played it. I will not be playing it, even if I do get a copy of the game. But from what I've heard, it's the same surface level stuff that has I want to say quote-unquote boring story. The story itself may not be as boring, but it's pretty linear. At least last year's didn't make any sense whatsoever at times. And it's really the scripted story rather than, creating your own story, which is what people want, right? You want to create your own story. You don't want to be put into this one, right? Especially with a sports game, because you want to be yourself. And I know that's not the easiest thing to do, and I get that. I'm not trying to say that this is the end of the game, but it is something that I can see why people wouldn't like. Either way, I actually played it all in Madden 21, and I actually kind of enjoyed the way they did it, and they added a lot of some of those situations into franchise mode, which I like. Like I said, I kind of liked it, but it was really short. I played it all in about 5 hours, an entire career in about 5 hours, and it didn't really have any replayability, and that was probably, I don't want to say it's the biggest issue, but with how short it was, it kind of was an issue. And like I said, it just left you wanting more. And like I said, I don't know what 22s is about. From what I'm hearing, it's just scripted. It's kind of the same thing as it always is. But at the end of the day, that's not the biggest deal. And we'll get to the biggest deal in a little bit. But moving forward onto actual franchise, obviously they had some upgrades that were really a big selling point for this game. They were finally going to focus on franchise mode, which, and to their credit, they did. I'll kind of talk about what they've added and what I've seen, but if you want to see an in-depth video of a franchise mode, I would highly, highly suggest watching Not the Expert's video for it. He went in depth with it, he played the game, he gave his thoughts on it, he kind of described everything I'm going to talk about right here, but more in depth, and he showed what it was like going through it. Like I said, I would highly suggest watching his gameplay, or watching his video on his channel. It's going to be pretty obvious to find. Just search up Not the Expert on YouTube and you'll find it. But either way, I'll kind of describe, obviously, the new upgrades. You have the coaching tree. You have weekly training that actually does stuff other than just upgrade players. You have player fatigue, and there are a few other quality of life upgrades, including like history of the league. You can finally go back in time to look at history of the league. I don't know if it was in the game last year. I didn't really check. I know they had a history section, but I think it was only for the year your game started and onward. This year you can look at, you know, past years, which I think is actually pretty cool. However, I'm not going to sit here and gush over this stuff that really should have been in the game forever. First off, it never should have left, because a lot of the things that they're adding, they aren't new. They're just bringing them back from old Maddens. And like I said, it's just doing their job. Like, sure, it's a great step forward, but it's like, if you start off a drive and you get a 10-yard holding penalty and then take a sack and it's like 2nd and 30 and you get a 15-yard play, you're still at 3rd and 15, right? You still have a long way to go. So I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm so happy with I'm happy with what they're doing with franchise mode. Sure, they made it actually playable. But I'm not going to sit here and praise them for this entire game over doing stuff that should have been in the game already. There are a couple things I want to talk about. Scenarios in the game actually look really good. Like I said, they brought some over from Face of the Franchise, which they had last year, and they're actually using them, and it makes sense. There were a couple of college football revamped guys that went to help EA with this, and weirdly enough, right as they start helping, scenarios start to come in and actually upgrade. And who would have thought? You know, people who actually care about the game and want to put out a good game coming in to help, and the game gets better. Then the last thing is a scouting update, which isn't in the game till September. Now, it looks like it'll get the job done. It looks good. It looks very close to what Axis Football has, which, in my opinion, that's fine. However, the biggest issue is that it's not going to be in the game until September. So, for me, there's really no reason to play that, because until that's in the game, what's the point of really playing franchise? You could play Ultimate Team or Face the Franchise if you're really feeling it, but for me, who's someone who just really plays franchise mode, I don't really want to play the game until September. And you can't even transfer over current saves into the new franchise mode. So, like I said, what's the point of starting a franchise? That's the biggest thing. While, yeah, I'm happy they're adding it in, it feels like something that should have been in the game already. You know what I'm saying? It really felt like they didn't have a plan with franchise until like 4 months ago. And they saw like, okay, people aren't going to buy the game. Well, shit, we got to do something. And they start throwing in all this stuff, and it's like, okay, cool. And then, but they don't have enough time to finish the scouting update, which they originally planned to not be in the game until next year. I was like, okay, well, that's fucking stupid. Probably one of the biggest issues with your game. But either way, it is, like I said, a lot of cool things with franchise mode. That's cool. They actually added in Hall of Fame cutscenes, and the two I saw, I didn't actually play through an entire season, because like I said, I wasn't allowed to. But what I saw from Not the Experts video, it was year 1, it was DeMarcus Ware, second year was Darrell Revis. It is interesting. I wonder, and they probably won't, because they probably don't have the actual ability to. Like, this is actually really tough. The cutscenes are really cool. The cutscenes are really cool. But it feels like they're just going to be for already retired players. And I wonder for how long that's going to be. Is it until forever? Because it might be. It might just be random different players who they think should be in the Hall of Fame or will be eventually. You know, maybe you will get a Peyton Manning one at one time, or maybe not, because he's technically already in the Hall of Fame. But I feel like they could just add it in anyways, because technically it was this year when he got into the Hall of Fame. But I think that's very interesting. So, are you going to just keep it with these players that are already out of the league, which actually would be fine if you just kept it going and going? Or are you going to try to implement it to where players in your league currently can make it? Now, that would also be really interesting. I don't know how they would do it, but it would be really interesting. And they probably didn't do it this year, which is, it's fine. I'm not that upset about that, because in itself, this Hall of Fame cutscene is really cool, but it has a lot of potential, if you know what I'm saying. Now, the final thing I want to talk about, I saw one particular scenario, and NTE talked about this in his video, where it was snowing during every playoff game. Like every single one that wasn't indoors, and minus the Super Bowl, because I don't remember where the Super Bowl was. But every game, minus the Super Bowl, it was snowing. And it was snowing. So he had 4 different games, and it snowed at every single one of them. A couple of them made sense, in Philadelphia or Green Bay. Okay, I could see that. But in Seattle? He played a game in Seattle, and it was snowing. Which, if you don't know, Seattle doesn't really get much snow. They can. So it's not, like, if it was just a one-time thing, okay, but since it happened on every single playoff game, minus the one he played against the Saints, which was in the Superdome, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right? I hope that's something that maybe it was just an early build of the game and they just wanted to add it, but they accidentally added it into every single game, but hopefully that's not something that sticks around, you know what I'm saying? Because it'll get boring really quick if you're playing every single playoff game in the snow, no matter where you're at. You know what I'm saying? So pushing forward into presentation now. I like it. I like the updated presentation. The new play art looks pretty cool. I enjoy that. The new stat features, they have chosen different stats that actually make more sense, that are more updated to today's game. It looks cooler. Like, at halftime, they actually add stats that are really interesting to think about. They actually make sense to how that team is playing. Cool. I love that. However, announcers are still really bland. And no offense to Brandon Gaudin. I love listening to him. I think he's a great announcer. But I feel like you could either add more announcers. You could add different lines. Again, NTE talked about this. He said every time he started a new season, they used the same joke, which is like a Brandon Gaudin running, or like a jog joke or whatever. But they use the same joke every single new season. And it feels like you could just get a little bit of variety into it. Sometimes they still make stupid calls whenever it doesn't make sense. A lot of this stuff. Either way, it's still very repetitive. It's still a very repetitive presentation, but it's not the craziest thing in the world. It's really tough to not let it be repetitive. You look at something like MLB The Show, it is a very repetitive presentation, and I'm not too upset with that. So it's really just a nitpick. It's something I hope they can kind of move on and fix in the future, but at the end of the day, it isn't the end of the world. What is the end of the world is the gameplay. So honestly, the only thing I can really say about the gameplay is pretty much the same game. It still doesn't make sense a lot of the time. It still isn't good gameplay. The animations still fuck up a lot of things. And at the end of the day, it's the same game, right? It still has X factors, which I don't really like. I actually thought they had a lot of potential. I still think they do. But whenever you have a player that can force a fumble every time he makes a tackle, that's an issue. I played the Seahawks in Week 1. Bobby Wagner, Jamal Adams, it's been this way for years, are just OP. Their whole defense can be filled with a bunch of 40 overalls, but Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams will make that a good defense to play with because they force a fumble almost every single time. I had a game where I fumbled the ball like 4 times, and I lost a game by a landslide. It is insane. It's stupid. Like I said, X factors can be good. They just aren't. Now, I will admit, there is one new feature. And the only way you could tell the difference between this gameplay and Madden 2 gameplay is the momentum feature. I like it. I actually really like it. I think it is a good addition. Similar to X Factors, if the abilities are OP, which I don't know all of the abilities, but if some of the abilities become a little bit OP, I can see wherever it can start going downhill, similar to the X Factor system. However, I do like the momentum feature. I think it's a great addition, and I think it is going in the right direction as long as the abilities make sense. So I do want to point that out before I dig into the game. Like, I love the momentum feature, the addition to that. I think it's a great addition. The offense, I will admit, the offensive AI seems a little bit smarter. It seems like it makes sense. It seems like it's doing some smarter things from what I've seen. However, the defense, it still doesn't know how to play defense. And I can't name off everything because I'm not a defensive wizard. I actually don't really know how to play defense in the NFL. However, I feel like if you're going to make a simulation football game, you should teach the AI how to play defense. In the limited highlights of Not the Experts video, I still saw so many times where the AI would just make you scratch your head. Like, it just wouldn't make sense. And one in particular that really just hit me. Like, I had to pause the video just to comprehend what just happened. I wasn't paying attention that hard, and I still recognized it. It was in the conference championship game against Seattle. The one where it was snowing, remember? And he was using the Falcons. He had Russell Gage, and he was throwing a ball over the middle. Okay. Russell Gage was running like a crossing route, and he was going to hit him. And Jamal Adams, the stud safety on the Seahawks, was coming up and really had two options here. He could have tried to jump the route and get a pick, but it would have been very risky and very improbable. Or, like, when he jumped it, could at least try to knock it down. Or, more likely, he could have come in, since he's a big hitter, and just hit the receiver as he caught the ball. So you're thinking, okay, either way, it's going to be either, a knockdown interception, or if he holds on, it's not too big of a deal. However, instead of doing either of those, Jamal Adams comes up, Russell Gage catches the ball, he stops, he literally just stops in his tracks, and Russell Gage just runs right around him and scores a touchdown. He literally just stopped. I don't care who you are in the NFL, or I don't care who you are as a fan, that does not happen. I can throw out my 8-year-old cousin on the NFL football field, and at least he will try to hit the guy. Like, that baffled me. How you can allow that to happen in an NFL game. And there were others, you don't have to go far to find these highlights of Madden 22's AI just not making any sense. You don't have to go far. You really don't. Just look up Ryan Moody's channel. Go to his channel. You will find plenty of highlights of the AI being stupid as hell, the game glitching, and overall just not making sense. I've looked at the presentation, the franchise mode. I want to buy Madden 22, but every time I think about it, I keep circling back to the gameplay, and I'm like, I just don't want to play the game. I just don't want to play it. I'd rather play NCAA 14 or Madden 25, or if I wanted to do something in franchise, just play Head Coach 09. I'd rather just go back to one of those. Like, that's the issue, is it's not the franchise mode anymore. It's not the presentation. Although those still hopefully and can use upgrades, that's not the issue anymore. It is mostly the gameplay, and it needs to be fixed. Overall, though, the game is a step in the right direction. It is a potential leaping platform they can use to gain their fan base back. It is a much improved game from Madden 21 and from Madden 20 and 19 and 18. But at the end of the day, that's not saying much. In fact, it's not really saying much at all, because last year's Madden had a 0.2 user rating score. A 0.4 is already doubling. So, I mean, like I said, it's a much improved game, but it's not saying that much. Mostly, it still just needs to fix gameplay. If you can fix the gameplay, if you can work on that to actually make it a fun game, I can see you buying Madden. I enjoy playing Ultimate Teams. I enjoy Diamond Dynasty. I enjoy playing my team in 2K. I enjoyed playing Ultimate Team in Madden. However, if I get into the game and it just pisses me off and I don't like playing the actual game, I see no reason to play it. And all this talking really makes me worried for the new NCAA football game. Because if they use the same engine and the game is still not fun to play, it doesn't matter how good the Dynasty mode is, as we've seen. It doesn't matter. From my experience here, it will not matter if they have the best and most deep Dynasty mode ever. I'll still try to play it. But if the gameplay isn't fun, then I'm just going to end up wanting to go back to NCAA 14 or just playing college football revamped, because I know they'll have plenty of upgrades and they'll still keep the thing deep, and you can still do playoffs in that game. And finally, I will not be buying Madden 22, at least not right away, especially not until September, especially not until that scouting update comes out, but I probably won't be buying the game at all, because, again, I just don't want to play it. I'd rather play Madden 25 or NCAA 14 or Head Coach 09. I'd rather be playing any one of those games than be playing Madden, unfortunately. That's just how I feel. And that's pretty much all I have to say about Madden 22. I'm hoping for positive things in the future. right? I'm still hoping that if EA is going to keep this NFL license to themselves, I'm hoping they can make a good, fun game. I'm not rooting against them here. I hope, I'm not rooting against them here. I'm just simply stating what I know. And right before I recorded this, I saw this last night, but I kind of wanted to talk about it. People commenting on Not the Expert's video. They were saying stuff along the lines how, oh, he sold his soul out and saying good things for money. And I just think that's bullshit. You look at someone, especially like Not the Expert, who has openly admitted to not playing Madden since Madden 18. Or at least on his channel, I should say. And was an EA game changer, but wasn't anymore because he openly criticized Madden. And he's still criticizing this Madden. He just simply played the game, showed it about, and kind of, enjoyed the franchise mode a little bit, which there's nothing wrong with that. And people going out there and just hating on him and calling him a sellout is just complete bullshit, and it's effed up. And I know most of his fan base, most of the people like me, they don't care. They would hope he would get paid for that because he did a lot for Madden. That video single-handedly, it almost made me want to buy the game. And I think he deserves the fucking bag for that. But either way, I trust his opinion, and I don't think he would sell out like that. And honestly, even if he did, so what? Who gives a shit? I mean, in his video, it's not like he openly, gushed over everything. Oh my god, this game is so good, guys. You guys have to buy it. No, he was just simply stating facts and still even talked about some of the downsides in the game. So that's my thoughts on that situation. I hope people can realize that, there's nothing wrong with what he did. But either way, if you guys did enjoy this video, please leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see more. Make sure, like I said, check out NTE's video on the franchise mode if you really want to go more in depth on what that game is like. Check out my podcast at Shooting the Football Fair. And until next time, this is Lucas signing off, and I'll see you guys later.